pictures there. Well, Diptyque Laurent is now on set with us to take us through the front page reactions to that fire at Notre-Dame Cathedral. Shock and sadness really across all of the French dailies.
That's right, and disbelief really pervading not just the French dailies but the foreign ones as well, as we'll see in a second. La Croix, the French Catholic daily, on their front page evoking Le Cœur en cendres, the heart in ashes. The paper reminding us that even if this current generation has forgotten the symbolism of Notre-Dame, a church nonetheless will always be symbolizing the meeting of heaven and earth. The editors marvel also at how surprising France is, this country that's so fiercely secular and de-Christianized, is suddenly feeling its collective heart being squeezed as we saw those awful images of the cathedral going up in flames. Despite our grief, c'est Notre Dame, it's Our Lady, and the whole nation will ensure that she will be rebuilt.
I mean, yeah, similar pictures on all of the front pages, notably of that spire the moment it came crashing down. That's La Parisienne, the local Parisian newspaper, that's brought out a special of 10 pages or more, but also on the front page of the left-leaning Libération.
That's right. Libé, always a champion of wordplay, is going with two words, but very evocative headline on a very, very evocative front page today. Two words, but that speaks so much. Notre DRAME, it says, obviously adding an R to Notre-Dame, which makes it our tragedy, and we see that spire disappearing into the ashes there. Le Parisien, you just mentioned it, in their pretty quick turnaround as well, 10 pages dedicated to this tragedy. The paper saying in its editorial today that, you know, a country feeds on national symbols, and Notre-Dame was more than ever one of the most iconic national symbols for France.
Indeed, and part of so much more than the religion. A cathedral stands for part of the revolution, you know, after the liberation of Paris after the wars. But take us through some of the international reactions, Diptyque.
Well, you know, it's no surprise that this has made international headlines. I mean, Notre-Dame is the most visited landmark in Europe, attracting 13 million visitors a year. Let's show you this mosaic that gives you an idea of how wide the coverage is. Around 91 front pages today dedicated to Notre-Dame all around the world. You can't even say there are so many you can't even see the individual titles, but you get an idea. That is how big, that is how important Notre-Dame is. The Independent, on the British Daily, also obviously looking at it on its front page, saying 9 centuries of history. A monument that took 200 years to build crashed down in just 63 minutes. Such is the cruelty of fire. The Scotsman opting for a French headline today, perhaps in homage to the French. La tragédie de Notre-Dame, it says on its front page. The Daily Telegraph underpinning what most of us are feeling today. Paris weeps for its beloved lady.
Indeed. There have also been, Diptyque, some editorials that are penning kind of an obituary to Notre-Dame.
That's right. You have the numerous editorials. The Guardian's editors say it feels as though the heart of France and the soul of Europe has been ripped out. They call the blaze a, quote, act of annihilation of one of the most emblematic places of Europe that survived the French Revolution and 2 world wars. I quite like Le Soir's editorial, which evokes what it calls this fire being a metaphor for the fragile world that we live in today, and Notre-Dame's thick secular walls were a sanctuary for us to tell us where we came from and who we were. You have the Washington Post has a really nice article that explains our human reaction to this loss, this grief we're feeling. It's much similar to the way we were feeling when we saw Syria's Palmyra under threat from the Islamic State group. We as humans like old things, and old buildings symbolize the notion that not everything must end, that there is this continuity to life, that it's part of our history and posterity, even for the most fervent atheists.
Indeed, I have to say I can feel that. It's the fact of something that cannot be replaced, been taken away, and so rapidly in this case. Diptyque, you've also found a piece in the New York Times that explains perhaps why Parisians feel particularly attached to this massive building right in the centre of the city.
Well, it's something I asked myself yesterday when I saw those images. I mean, many of us we pass by the Notre-Dame every morning on our way to work. When we wake up early, the city is eerily quiet, and the Gothic nature of the Notre-Dame gave that eeriness to Paris. And Pamela Druckerman in the New York Times actually explains really well why you know, this country that's so fiercely secular loves Notre-Dame. It is in the beating heart of Paris. It had its own island. It was perched in the middle. If you were in Paris and lived in Paris, you could never zip around the city without seeing it, without meeting someone near it. I also love that she said it reassured Parisians to know that at the, quote, heart of their highly planned city was something entirely non-rational and non-Cartesian. And I really like that analysis. Another writer from the Washington Post also really struck me about when I was thinking about my own reaction, saying Paris has gone through 2 terror attacks in the last 4 years. We've become accustomed to seeing armed guards around our famed monuments. But through it all, there's always been this reassurance in our monuments that Paris is indestructible. Paris survived the Second World War when Hitler was threatening to bring it to the ground. So Notre-Dame really epitomized that survival, that instinct of survival. And that's why it's all the more heartbreaking to see those images.
Indeed, and adding to that sense of complete disbelief to see it go up in flames. There have also been some cartoonists that have been quick to put pen to paper to illustrate their sentiments.
Let's show you a couple of them. This one from Graham Mackay for the Canadian paper, the Hamilton Spectator. I mean, it's pretty obvious, you know, France's beating heart, Notre-Dame. You have this one, we saw this earlier as well, Eva. I'm sorry to show it again. It is heartbreaking. Quasimodo in tears. Let's show you this one as well, which I thought was quite nice. This user saying, you know what, let's pay tribute to the Parisian firefighters who battled those flames for several hours yesterday in very dangerous conditions. Thank you, this user says, thank you to the firemen of Paris, adding this cartoon here of La Marianne hugging Notre-Dame.
Indeed, and one firefighter very badly injured in that fire, the only casualty of it, apart from, of course, the building. Diptyque Laurent, thanks a lot for that wrap-up of the international papers reacting. Well, the cause, as we were saying, of the fire is still unknown. The investigation under